You know, some people say that when your child turns 40, you're supposed to let them go, that you've done your job, and now it's their wife's turn to take care of them. I never quite understood that logic, but I'm just a 64-year-old woman who made carrot cake every single year for 4 decades, so what do I know? My name is Vivian, and this is the story of the birthday party I wasn't invited to, until I showed up anyway. Daniel turned 40 on a Saturday in March 15th. I remember it was raining that morning, and I made his carrot cake the way I always did. Cream cheese frosting, 2 layers, a little extra vanilla because he's always loved that. I was planning a quiet dinner at home, just the 2 of us, like we'd done for the past 5 years since he married Stephanie. But at around 2 o'clock that afternoon, I was sitting in my kitchen with a cup of tea, scrolling through Facebook like I do most days, and I decided to check Stephanie's Instagram. She posts constantly pictures of their house, their vacations, their garden. Highlights of her life, you know. That's what Instagram is for. There was a story, just put up 40 minutes earlier. It showed a steakhouse downtown, the one with the big windows and the fancy lighting. Tables were decorated with white linens and these expensive-looking centerpieces with flowers I couldn't name. There were people everywhere, dozens of them, standing around holding champagne glasses. And in the corner of the photo, partially cut off, I could see Stephanie in a black dress, holding up her glass. No caption, just that one photo. But the timestamp said it was taken 2 hours before I was sitting there with my cup of tea and my 2-layer carrot cake that no one was coming to eat. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there looking at my hands. They were covered in cream cheese frosting because I'd been touching my face while I worked. 40 years of birthday cakes, and I was looking at my hands with frosting on them, and I realized that for the first time I was making a cake for a birthday party I wasn't invited to. Now, I want to be fair here. Stephanie and I have never been the closest. She comes from money, not that there's anything wrong with that, but she's always been the type of woman who keeps everything controlled, organized, perfect. She has a planner that she color codes it. And Daniel, my Daniel, he's always been easygoing, a bit messy, the kind of person who leaves his keys in different places every day. I used to tease him about it. We had that kind of relationship. So when they got married 8 years ago, I knew things would change. I prepared myself for that. I made peace with the idea that he'd spend holidays with her family sometimes, that she'd want to plan things her way, that I wouldn't always be the first person he called anymore. I'm not one of those mothers who can't let go. I'm not. I wanted him to have a full life, but this felt different. I sat there for probably 20 minutes, just looking at that photo. Then I did something I haven't done in a very long time. I picked up the phone and called Daniel. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi, Mum, what's up?" "Daniel, sweetheart, what time is your party tonight?" There was a pause, a real pause, the kind where you can hear someone's breathing change. "Mom, what time, honey?" 7:30, but at the steakhouse downtown. Another pause, longer this time. "Stephanie wanted to keep it small," he said quietly. "Just people from work, a few friends. She thought it would be too awkward if—" I don't remember hanging up. I remember standing in my kitchen. I remember looking at that carrot cake sitting on the counter, beautiful and finished and completely unwanted. And I made a decision that probably wasn't very smart, but I've never been known for making the smart decisions when it comes to my son. I wrapped that cake up. I put it in a box. And then I did something I'd been working on in secret for the past 4 weeks. I went upstairs to my bedroom closet, and I pulled out a brown leather photo album. For months, ever since Daniel told me he was turning 40, I'd been gathering pictures. Old ones from my storage boxes, faded photographs from the 90s when the colors were weird and the film was cheap. Pictures from my phone from the last few years, printed and cut carefully. I'd spent 4 entire weeks putting this together, staying up late some nights because my hands would start shaking with the emotion of it all. The album had 40 pages, 40 years, 1 page for each birthday. Page 1. Daniel at exactly 1 year old, covered in chocolate cake, looking at the camera with complete confusion on his face. I'm beside him, holding him up, both of us laughing. Page 5. His kindergarten birthday. He's missing his 2 front teeth and wearing a birthday crown that's too big. All his little friends from school are in the background. Page 10. He's 10 years old, gap-toothed still, but taller now, holding up a baseball trophy. We'd just come back from his game. Page 12. Page 12 was the hard one. That was the year his father left. Daniel was 12 years old, and his father decided that he wanted a different life, and he went and got one without us in it. I didn't have any party photos from that year because there wasn't really a party. We'd made a cake, a lopsided one because I wasn't the best baker back then and I made it myself, and we sat in our kitchen, just the 2 of us, and we sang Happy Birthday very quietly. That photo on page 12 shows Daniel and me with that lopsided cake. We're both smiling, but if you look closely, you can see the sadness in our eyes. You can see a boy who's just realized his father isn't coming home, and a mother who's determined to make sure he knows that's not his fault. I included all of it in that album, the difficult years, the good years. Page 15 was his high school graduation. Page 20 was him at college. Page 25 was him bringing Stephanie home for the first time. They both looked so young and hopeful. Page 30 was his wedding. Page 35 was a camping trip we took just the 2 of us about 5 years ago, before things got complicated. 39 pages. 39 birthdays. 39 years of my life, documented through photographs and memories, and tiny notes I'd written in the margins. Stories. The year he broke his arm playing basketball. The year he went to prom. The year he got his first job. All of it there, preserved in fading ink and careful handwriting. And page 40. Page 40 was blank, just white paper, except for 1 sentence written in my handwriting in blue pen. This year I wasn't invited, but I came anyway, because that's what mothers do. I put on a blue dress, not fancy, but nice. I did my hair. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time, and then I picked up that album and that box with the carrot cake inside, and I drove downtown to that steakhouse. The valet attendant looked confused when I got out of my 15-year-old Honda Civic, but he was polite about it. I walked in, and the restaurant staff seemed to know immediately where I was going. There was only one private party that night, only one reason a woman my age would be walking in with a photo album and a cake box. The room went quiet when I walked in, not silent, just quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when 40 people suddenly realize they're witnesses to something important. Daniel was standing near the bar, holding a drink, talking to someone I didn't know. He looked good. He looked happy. Up until the moment he saw me. Then his face changed. I watched it happen. The shock came first, then confusion, then something that looked almost like pain, and then something else, something I can't quite describe. Recognition, maybe. The sudden understanding that his mother had just walked into her own son's birthday party uninvited, holding a cake and a 4-week project of memories. Stephanie was across the room, and I watched her realize that I was there too. She was standing with a group of women in expensive clothes, and her face went white. Actually white. Like all the color just drained right out of her. For a moment, nobody moved. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen. Then Daniel's old college roommate, a guy named Greg, who I'd always liked, suddenly appeared at my side. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, putting his hand on my arm. "Oh my God, you came. Daniel talks about your carrot cake all the time. All the time. He brings it up randomly at work. I've heard the carrot cake stories." And just like that, the moment cracked. The room started moving again. Greg took the cake box from my hands and brought it to the kitchen. I walked toward Daniel, holding that album against my chest. He didn't say anything. He couldn't. His eyes were doing something strange. They were wet, but his face was smiling, and he was shaking his head slowly, like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. I held out the album. He took it, and then he held it to his chest, just like I'd been holding it, and he looked at me with those eyes, and everything I needed to say was already understood between us. I watched Stephanie across the room. She stood there for exactly 5 more seconds. Then she set down her drink and walked toward the back of the restaurant. Toward the kitchen, I think, or maybe toward the bathrooms, toward somewhere she could disappear to. She didn't say anything. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge that I was there. She just left the room. The party continued. People came up to me and told me they were glad I'd made it, which was kind of them. We ate the cake. People said it was delicious, and I knew they meant it because it was the recipe I'd been perfecting for 40 years. Daniel barely left my side all night. We looked through the album together at one of the tables, and he pointed out the pages he remembered most vividly. He lingered on page 12 for a long time, not saying anything, just looking at that lopsided cake and that younger version of himself. We didn't talk about Stephanie. We didn't talk about the fact that I wasn't invited. We didn't need to. That Monday morning, Daniel showed up at my house, just appeared at my door with a suitcase and 2 grocery bags full of fresh vegetables and nice cheese and the ingredients for dinner. "I'm going to stay for a couple of weeks," he said, "if that's okay." I didn't ask him why. I didn't ask him what had happened with Stephanie. I just smiled and told him his room was ready, which it always was. I always kept it ready. And I asked him what he wanted for dinner. "Carrot cake," he said. So I made him carrot cake. I made it that night, and we sat in my kitchen eating it straight from the pan, like we used to do when he was a kid. And we didn't talk about anything important. We just sat together in the quiet of my house, and we were okay. He stayed for 2 weeks. During that time, Stephanie never called. She never texted. She never came by to pick him up or to ask him to come home. She was just absent. And Daniel didn't seem like he was in any hurry to leave. People ask me sometimes if I regret going to that party uninvited, if I regret showing up anyway, making it awkward, showing up Stephanie's plans. They ask if I think I handled it wrong, but I don't. I don't regret it at all, because when my son looked at me that night, when he held that album to his chest with all those years of his life documented inside it, when he saw that blank page with my handwriting on it, I saw something in his face that I needed to see. I saw that he understood what he was to me, not an obligation, not a grown man he was supposed to let go of, but his mother, the person who shows up, the person who makes carrot cake even when she's not invited, the person who loves him anyway. Stephanie never apologized, and I never expected her to. I didn't do it to make her feel guilty, though I'm sure she did. I did it because my son was turning 40, and I couldn't let that day pass knowing he thought his mother wasn't worth inviting. Some things are worth showing up for. Some things are worth the awkwardness and the risk and the possibility that you might not be wanted. Some things are worth showing up anyway, with all the proof of your love wrapped up in a brown leather album and a cake that took 40 years to perfect. That look on his face when he saw me, that was everything I needed to know about whether I'd made the right choice. That one look told me he understood, that he'd needed me there, that sometimes the people we love need to know we're not going anywhere, not even when they try to build a life that doesn't have room for us in it. I'm still not sure what happened between Daniel and Stephanie. I don't ask. But every year now, on his birthday, he comes to my house. He brings flowers. We make carrot cake together. And he always saves the last page of a new album for the year ahead. I don't know what he'll write on page 41, but I know that when he does, he'll write it knowing that his mother will be there to see it.